Welcome to the Inside Silverstone podcast, a business-focused podcast covering all things tech, engineering and innovation. Hosted by me, Chris Broome, a huge tech, motorsport and gaming fan, and also the owner of Longhurst, a firm of lifestyle financial planners and independent financial advisors located in Silverstone, Northamptonshire. This is a series of unscripted and unpolished conversations with leading business owners, thought leaders and high-tech talent where we discuss their experiences within the Silverstone business and motorsport region. We will also be asking them to share their knowledge, insight and their thoughts on the future just for you. If you're looking to learn more about the Silverstone high growth region and commercially connect with like-minded peers, you've definitely come to the right place. Welcome to Inside Silverstone. Welcome to the next edition of Inside Silverstone. My name is Chris Broome and I am your host. Today I am delighted to welcome to the show Richard White, who is the founder and CEO of Incentivesmart. Richard, welcome to the show.
Hi Chris, thanks for having me on.
Absolute pleasure. As is customary, Richard, as I explain at the beginning of every single interview, it'd be really cool if I could quickly just run through a quick education and career background, just so that our wonderful dear listeners can understand a little bit about your journey and career to date. So is it okay if I quickly do that?
Yeah, no problem.
So education-wise, sort of born and raised in and around Walsall, I would presume. So you went to the Queen Mary's Grammar School?
That's right, yeah.
And so I was going to say, obviously, you're sort of from Broome, but you would tell me off for that because you would say you're
I'm from the Black Country. I'm not a Brummie, yeah.
You're not a Brummie. And presumably you're a Walsall fan, football fan?
I am, for my sins, yeah. Yeah, it's a hard time for us at the moment. Scraping the bottom of League Two, yeah.
Okay, so we'll move on from that. Hopefully you won't be going down. And then from a sort of a further development, certainly in more recent times, you've also attended the Said Business School, which is part of the University of Oxford, where you attended a Goldman Sachs
10,000 small businesses, 10KSB, yeah.
10KSB program. Before we get into everything else, what was that course, and why did you attend it, and what was the value to you as a business owner?
It's an incredible course, first off. I was introduced to it by a business colleague of mine here, and I went to him to say, we want to put a panel of like-minded businesses together so quarterly we can sit together and sort of air our problems and people that we trusted around the table and say, I've got this problem, how can you help me out? And he said, you need to go on this course. He just recently finished it. So I applied. I had to go through quite an extensive application process and interviews and so on to get onto it. But it was an entirely free course.
Right.
They invested huge amounts of money in each person there, which was incredible. But it's essentially like a mini MBA run over 4 months. So there's a few residentials and there's a coursework. It's very time intensive. So I think it was taking me out of the business for maybe 2 days a week, if not more, while it was going on. But it was incredible. So we touched on everything from sales and marketing to finance to employee culture and engagement, which is our area of speciality anyway. But it was just amazing. So the amount of learning, even though I've been in business a long time and run businesses for a long time, just gave me so much back. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. And to be fair, I think we'll come back to that just as we sort of talk through career anyway. And so before we get into what Incentivesmart do and the sort of the business and its genesis, let's talk about early career for you. So when was the first time you opened a business? How old are you?
I was 19.
19?
Well, I had a few businesses at school as well.
Okay.
Little bits.
Like what?
Well, we went to an all-boys grammar school, and my friend and I, Tom, my best mate at the time, we decided we were going to start up some parties before we were old enough to go out clubbing and stuff. So there was a girls' school down the road, so we organised these parties. We hired a venue, got a good DJ in, sold tickets to the girls' school, sold tickets to the boys' school, and we did about 4 of these. And I think the last one that we did had 800 people at it, and
wow.
it was a pretty...
what were you selling tickets for? How much were you selling tickets for?
I don't know, it was like £1 a ticket or something at the time. It was more about sort of the kudos that you got from it. We were pretty popular, I think, at the time for putting that together. And then we sort of got old enough that people were going out to pubs and clubs and things, so it sort of died off. But that was one of the first forays into business, and I always wanted to have a business off the back of that. So 19, and it was in events as well, sort of.
So didn't go off to university. What was sort of the story around that?
I think I went to a really good, like the grammar school I went to was really good, and I was probably one of the only people who didn't go off to university from that school. But I wanted to go to Loughborough desperately. I was really into sport, played a high level of hockey, and I desperately wanted to go and do economics at Loughborough, and probably, was too into girls and cars when I was doing my A-levels and didn't get the grades that I wanted. So I didn't get into Loughborough, and at the same time, my dad had been headhunted down to Milton Keynes to run a business down in Milton Keynes. And I thought, I'll just go with them. I want to start my own business anyway. If I can't go to Loughborough, I'll do something else, and I'll go and get a job. And never looked back, really, I suppose.
And what was your first job? So you landed in Milton Keynes, Buckinghamshire. So what was your first job?
My very first job was, I did a month of something, of load planning at DSV, Samson Transport, loading lorries up and things like that. Actually planning the loads that go into the lorries. But then my first proper job was at an IT recruitment company, which was a bit Wolf of Wall Street, to be honest.
Right, okay.
It was, hardcore banging the phones. If you were caught off the phone, they'd sellotape the phone to your hand. If you were caught off again, they'd sellotape it to your head. They'd make you stand on the desks.
Okay.
It was real sort of work hard, play hard environment. And people didn't last long there.
How to incentivize your staff to work harder. Sellotape a telephone to their head. Right.
Maybe that is the genesis of how I got into employee engagement and customer loyalty. Yeah.
And so what happened after that? So how long were you at the IT company for?
So I was there for nearly a year, I would say, which is probably the longest that most people had been there. And the turnover was so high. But this opportunity came to work for an events company, and because I'd had the background in doing events and I wanted to have my own business, I thought that's a great opportunity to learn. So I went to a business that sold hospitality for the Grand Prix and Ascot and Wimbledon, and in fact we operated the helicopter transfers that ran in and out of Silverstone. Nice. Which on the Grand Prix weekend is the busiest airport in the world. So it's a crazy thing that we had going on there. It was the real niche of the business. But essentially what I was doing was hitting the phones again, and that background in the IT company had really given me an impetus to smash the phones and get some business in. And I won business with British American Racing down in Brackley when they were a Formula One team. We flew their sponsors into the Grand Prix and Jacques Villeneuve. Nice. Got to meet him in the factory. So it was a really exciting place to work as a sort of 18, 19-year-old.
Fascinating. And the grounding and the learning you got there must have been clearly invaluable.
It was a small business, but it was a great, interesting environment.
And then what happened then? So that wasn't your business. So what then led you to open your own?
Really liked the owners of that business. They were really kind to me, and I think it's because I was really doing well with the sales. But my manager wasn't so fond, I think, and it got to it just a strange situation in a very small office, and I wasn't enjoying it. And I thought, you know what, I can do this myself now. All I'm doing is phoning companies and selling them products. I knew all the suppliers and so on. So I thought, I can just do this myself. I'm going to go and do it. And I suppose in the back of your mind, you think it's easier than it really is. Yeah. But off I went and I did it. And I made a very strong point of not trying to go after any of their customers, because I like the owners. Just, it was all about hammering the phones. And my first customer was Shell. Nice. So I made the right phone call at the right time, and we took all of their a corporate group of about 20 people to Harare to watch the cricket. Just, an incredible first piece of business that we did. Nice. And I kept the check framed in the office, and I don't know where it is now, annoyingly. But, it must be somewhere in the loft or something. Yeah. But I should dig that out.
And so you're 19 years old to start an events company. Yeah. And then what's happened? So you've then gone through to sort of 2005, where you then were part of a new business alongside your then wife.
Yes.
So tell us that story.
So I grew the business, the events business. We had a few bumps in the road. So we had the 9/11 happen and everyone withdrew their budgets, and that was tough. And we sort of battled our way through, got through that. My wife came in, and my ex-wife now, but my wife at the time, came and joined the business. She was a very successful salesperson at Yellow Pages. So she came into the business to sort of head up the sales side of it. And a couple of years went by, we were doing well, and Julie Julie's my ex-wife, she went off on maternity leave to have our amazing son, Sam. And she's at home with Sam, but her mind's going, she's always very busy and business-driven woman. I came home one day and she said, I've got this business idea. And she explained it to me, and it was a party plan, direct selling business for baby products. And she explained, I've got this network of friends. We all just talk about babies. We're only interested in that. And they're marketing managers and directors of businesses and accountants and all these sort of people, really, really good people. I want to do this party plan business. And I was like, great, fantastic. I was sort of took it seriously, sort of half didn't. And I think a week later, maybe 2 weeks later, I walked back in the house and she said, I've applied for Dragon's Den.
Right, okay.
And at the time, 2005, Dragon's Den had only been on one series. So we had, we'd been really into it, the first series. She said, I've applied for Dragon's Den. And they called her back the next day and gave her a screen test down in London. Literally the next day, I had to stay at home with Sam. And she went off and did that. And then I think they said to us, great, we'd like to have you on. 2 or 3 weeks down the line, you've got to come on to Dragon's Den.
Wow, so you went on Dragon's Den?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think you're the first interview we've had on who's been on Dragon's Den alongside, as I said, your then wife. So what was that experience like? So what was that like?
Yeah, intense. Nothing like you see really on TV. So there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. But back then, I presume it's all done in the studio now. Back then, it literally was in an old warehouse in London. And we sort of had to walk past all this stock. And, the stairs up to where the dragons were was like a ladder almost. So it was very sort of rough and ready, but professional. And they took us off into a green room, separated us off from everyone, and we met a few other people. The guy who did Reggae Sauce was in the room with us, and he's obviously gone on to do amazing things as well. And we were kept away from the dragons. We didn't know who they were going to be. So it was quite intense, build up to it. I'd say, because I had my events business and I had some pretty high profile clients, I didn't want my clients to think I was being distracted. So I'd said, look, I don't really want to go on ideally. And Julie was the head of the business. She was the face of the business anyway. So we'd agreed that Julie was going to go on and do the pitch, and I was just going to stand at the bottom of the stairs and listen intently. But that didn't work out how I'd planned, unfortunately.
Right, okay, what happened?
I think Rachel Elnar asked, or Duncan Bannatyne, one of the two asked Julie a question about the finances and the business plan. And she said, my husband helped with that. And they said, is he here? And I was standing at the bottom of the stairs cringing, going, I don't want to be, I get nervous at the best of times with things like that. So it was a real scary moment for me. But they called me up. I think Julie had been up there about 20 minutes, 30 minutes. So bear in mind, you only see a few minutes on the TV, anywhere between 5 and 15 minutes of people on there. She'd already been up half an hour, and I went up the stairs to face the first question. It was Duncan Bannatyne asked me this really hard, tough question about the business plan, about the finances, and I was thinking, I'm remembering all these numbers, that we put in the business plan. And the first sentence that came out of my mouth came out a little bit like this, like a really nervous. I was only 26 at the time. So it was, nerve-wracking moment. But we were there 3.5 hours, hot studio lights.
Being grilled by the dragons.
Being grilled.
3.5 hours.
Yeah. And to us, it felt like a really good business meeting. They asked us challenging questions, yes, but it didn't feel like it was, we're on a roller coaster. But of course, when they edit it for TV, it looks like you're on this horrendous roller coaster where they're putting you in bad positions, and they're editing all these weird expressions later that don't happen in reality at the time.
Oh my God. Did you get an offer?
We did. So Thea Pafitis offered us the money first. And at the time, there wasn't really a business. It was an idea, it was a concept. We'd done a lot in a month or so. But Theo Pavitas offered us the money, and then Peter Jones came in and said, I'll offer you the same amount of money. And I think Theo hadn't been on the first series. We didn't really, in truth, know who he was at the time. And we knew Peter Jones, and he was the sort of go-to guy I think everyone wanted the investment off in the first series. So yeah, we took the investment on the TV show at the time off Peter Jones, yeah.
And so post-production, then what happens?
So we went into a period of negotiation. We didn't really see much of Peter Jones again, to be honest. He stuck his head in the meeting room a couple of times down at his place, but he didn't really get involved. We were negotiating with his legal team, and he's kind of right-hand man. But it wasn't really what we expected in terms of what the investment was for. I won't go into the detail, but it really wasn't a great move for us necessarily. Probably getting it into business with him would have been the best part of it, the PR and so on. So we just felt like it wasn't right. We talked to our legal advisors. They were in agreement. It wasn't quite right. If we thought the business had legs, why would we do this? He's selling out really. But we didn't want to pull out because we wanted it to go on TV, because we thought this was great PR opportunity. So I think it was 9 months between recording and it actually going on TV. So we had to keep these negotiations running for this whole 9-month period to make sure it was put on and aired on TV. And when it was a landslide. You couldn't buy that PR. It was absolutely astonishing. We had the website was crashed. The phone rang off the hook for a month. Constant.
What, either customers or people wanting to invest?
A bit of both, yeah. We had 6 solid offers of investment come in from other places. One of them was a multi-million-pound offer from we just couldn't meet their demands, the due diligence. The business wasn't big enough at that stage. We'd bought it in that 9-month negotiation period. We'd had bought it on quite a lot. But yeah, it wasn't really where they needed us to be to put millions into the business. It wasn't right. But one of the investment offers that came in was from somebody that we knew.
Right.
It was from an old friend that Julie used to play hockey with back in the Midlands.
Right.
And they used to work at NatWest together on the tills and stuff. Their first ever jobs at 16 or 17. And she was a multimillionaire from something her dad had invented, a patented product. So we thought this couldn't be better. Brilliant.
What could possibly go wrong?
What could possibly go wrong? Exactly.
And so we can't obviously get into the full ins and outs of what then happened for a number of reasons, including just professional integrity and just keeping stuff very real. But ultimately, Dragon's Den offer was eventually sort of you sort of backed out of that. You did, which is fine for all the right reasons. Took on a new investor in the form of a family friend, as such, but it didn't work out. No. And the net outcome, sort of cutting through all the noise, was what? And what did you learn from it?
Yeah,
if we can focus on the lessons.
Yeah, exactly. I think essentially I suppose it was, we could call it a hostile takeover from the investor, I think is probably the nicest way to put it. But it was an unpleasant time, put it that way. And it seemed very unfair at the time. The lesson I took from it was that is that you take that as a lesson. I've learned from that and moved and started a new business going forward. And I always look back at that as it was horrible at the time, don't get me wrong, but I look at it as a positive learning experience. And it's very easy to get dragged down with with everything at the time, because at the time that was happening, my business was suffering as well.
This is your events business. We're still running during this entire period of time.
So we're in like 2008, 2009 now. This sort of hostile takeover was going on by the investor, and my business was suffering because of the financial crash, and everyone was pulling their budgets back. We had a few key customers not paying us, so it was really like crunch time, everything was collapsing. We had this business empire, kind of, small business empire, but it was collapsing around our ears, and it was horrible. But yeah, you've just got to. My personal take on all these things is they're learning experiences, and at the time, obviously, you just have to battle through them. But looking back now, lessons learned. What can you take from it? What can you use from that? And that is my power now, in a way.
Your superpower.
That's my superpower, looking back at that horrible time and the fact I got through it,
With a few positive life scars, as I call them, grey hairs on chins and otherwise. I think I've got a few more than you. So, and so then in 2008, you then founded and launched Incentivesmart, which is a business whose head office is based near Crownfield. Just outside the campus here. I'm sat in your wonderful boardroom with nice oak table and pool table behind, and a very, very relaxing environment. So talk to our wonderful listeners and introduce what Incentivesmart do and how you help both businesses but also employees with their sort of day-to-day working lives.
Sure, yeah. So I suppose the elevator pitch is that we help ambitious businesses to build better trust and more rewarding relationships with their customers and staff.
Okay. How do you do that?
So we do that by creating employee engagement programs for businesses and customer loyalty programs, whether that be for direct customers or whether that be through a distribution network, where you're trying to engage people in your brand, in your company philosophy, in your values, in order that they'll perform in the way you want them to, whether that's sell more or whether it's just understanding your business better, or whether it's communicating with you better, giving you better feedback. So we're trying to drive all these sort of business behaviours that companies really need and very rarely ask for or very rarely sort of go after. And that they either try and generate these behaviours by throwing quick promotions at people and sort of paying lip service to it. And that it just doesn't work because people are fickle and they go to the next big offer and they go, they run around. So we try and build these long-term strategies for businesses to engage their people, so they want to stay with them longer, they want to be more productive, they care about the business more. And from the customer's side, they'll really understand the business that they're buying from. And go ahead and sell it more effectively, or buy it more effectively.
And so, how do you do that? So this is a technology-based business.
Yeah.
So I'm a medium to large size business, maybe even an SME, because I am clearly as Longhurst. How can you help our business, and what's the sort of format in which that's delivered or communicated to a customer or B internal staff and employees?
So yeah, when we started out in 2009, we were probably more of an agency, and we tried to come up with bespoke solutions for people. And we had a technology platform called Incentive Bank that we developed in-house ourselves here, that sort of helped those programs move forward. And as the years have gone on, we've kind of flipped that a little bit. So we've become more of a technology business with an agency side to try and drive the performance of the technology effectively. So the technology platform, Incentive Bank, is an online rewards and recognition platform. So it would help you in your business, for example, to recognize your staff in a more standardized way. It would remind you to recognize them regularly. It would give you the ability to reward them. So we do that through points banking technology. So the old phrase, points make prizes, it's a similar kind of thing, but there's a lot of science and technology behind that's sort of driving that forward in your business. And it's to try and help you get the most out of your people effectively. People, the stat that always astonishes me is that in your workforce, typically in the UK, only 30% of people are actually engaged in the company that they work for.
Right, and what about the 70%?
Well, 40% are passengers. So if you imagine your business is a boat and you've got 30% of people and they're rowing like mad, trying to take your business forward, and they're engaged and they love what they do and they understand the values and the mission of your business. You got 40% of those people who are passengers just tooting along going, oh, this is a nice ride. You know,
Right.
this is
Catching some
nice
rays.
scenery.
Yeah.
Lovely. But then there's another 30% who are your sort of, you know, they're actively disengaged people in the business.
Right.
Not necessarily your business, but, you know, in businesses generally.
Acting like what?
And these people are chucking anchors
like
out.
an anchor. Yeah,
exactly.
right,
Or they're rowing
you
in the opposite direction, or they're rowing in a direction that sends you around in circles. So, you know, if you'll excuse that example, but it's, I think it gets the point across quite well. So this is the state of UK business, and we're kind of on a mission to change that, really. And the customer loyalty side feeds neatly out the back of that, because I think one of the massive drivers of customer loyalty is buying from a company with an engaged workforce.
Yes.
Because people buy people.
Yeah.
And the people in that engaged workforce will drive innovation, will be better people to work with generally. So we sort of talk about this. There's a Harvard Business Review paper on service profit chain, and we've kind of, you know, made this a bit of our mantra, where it talks about having strong leaders who communicate mission, purpose, value of the business really well within their business. They reward and recognise people for great behaviour, and that in turn creates engaged employees. They're more committed to your business. They'll work harder, they'll innovate more, because they care about the business they're working for, sometimes more than their own, you know, themselves. And that passes on to customers. Customers feel that.
Sure.
You know, they understand that this business is a business that we need to work with, because look at the level of engagement they're giving us. They're treating us well. They're looking after us, and that in turn obviously leads to increased profits, committed, loyal customers.
So let's just talk about the practicalities of that. So that clearly sounds fantastic, and something that I'm sure all businesses would be interested in engaging with. So if I'm sitting there thinking, I don't think with Longhurst, I don't think I'd be the right type of business, but I'm I distribute something or a manufacturer of something, and I want to appeal to my customers. How does your system sort of help those customers engage? One thing, having a great team and who are promoting the brand and very enthusiastic, but what does the system do to engage that customer? How are they rewarded, and how do they learn and feel like they're more part of the brand and the business?
Sure. So a good customer example of ours would be Miele, who make the high-end kitchen appliances, and I owe a lot to one of the guys at Miele, who actually helped me restart when everything was very bad back in 2009. Got me back on the horse a little bit by saying, we love what you do, you've got to carry on. So I owe him a lot, and they're still a customer today, and we do everything for Miele, from employee engagement right through to customer loyalty. But to answer your question, what they're trying to do is drive engagement through their dealer network. So they sell ovens and dishwashers and steam ovens and all this kind of thing through a dealer network of kitchen design studios and so on. So how do we drive their behaviour when they can go out and sell any one of a number of competitors' products? And don't forget, Miele is a premium product, so they're selling their product at anywhere between 20 and 50% more expensive than their nearest competitors, generally speaking. So how do they get these salespeople who are a bit sort of far away from them, you know, down the distribution chain?
How do they?
So we do that by driving their behaviour. So initially it starts off with you could argue it's a bit of just an incentive, a bit of a bribe, you know, sell more of our ovens and you'll get this reward. That's to try and get them engaged in the program. So they're awarded points for selling product, but they're also awarded points for engaging in Miele's content. They're also awarded points for taking quizzes and doing e-learning modules. There's all sorts of behaviours that lead to that sale, and we liken it to a football match. So, you know, in a football match, you want to win the match. That's the big goal, right? And most companies only ever reward somebody for that big match-winning thing, whether it's the sale or what have you. Yeah. But actually, there's a lot of things that lead to that match win, isn't there? You know, there's the goals, first of all, so they're the sort of medium wins to lead to that match win. But also, there's a lot of passes, tackles, things that happen in the game that are really important and build up to that end goal. And So we're trying to look at all the different behaviours that we're trying to drive within the dealer network to lead to those end sales.
And so presumably part of that e-learning is that they would be being tested on the products or about the brand. So in a way, they are learning in a more in-depth way about the product, and about the company, so that when they're then engaging with a potential customer, they can with more authority and enthusiasm say this steam oven, as you just explained, or whatever. This is how they've manufactured it, and this is why it's worth paying the extra few shillings for it, because actually this is what it's going to deliver.
Exactly, and motivation and engagement is intrinsic. It's something that's done by the person. I can't say to you, I can't motivate.
No, I've got to want to do it myself. Yeah.
Chris, I'm going to give you a reward, be motivated. That's not how it works. But what we're trying to do is we reward for those little behaviours, and over time people become more educated, understand the brand, and they become self-motivated, and that's how you drive brand evangelism and brand engagement. That's what we're trying to do. It's taking the user on a whole journey, and the reward is just a part of that.
So what are my rewards? So what can I? what prizes can I win?
Yeah. So on our platform, you can save up your rewards for all these fabulous behaviours, and then you can redeem them against anything from a digital gift card right up to a travel experience. But we try and push heavily the experiential side of things. So you can redeem an iPad or a TV or whatever you want, anything in between. And choice is a really big thing, by the way, because just saying to somebody, "Well done, you did great. Here's a Amazon voucher." Well, if that doesn't, Amazon's probably a bad example.
No, for sure. Choice, but it's got to be something that
give them a bottle of wine and they don't drink. It's great recognition initially, but you keep doing that, and people start thinking, what
it's a worthless gift.
Yeah, and it actually becomes a demotivator. So giving people choice is really, really important. But we try and push the experience side, because there's a huge amount of research going back 80 years or more. That we the science behind what we do, if you like, that proves that money is not a great motivator. So just throwing money at people, throwing cash reward at people is not a thing that will motivate them to drive, their behaviour.
But memories, life experiences.
And I always look back. We mentioned Julie, my ex-wife, earlier. She always she worked at Yale for a long time and was always a top achiever. She had cash rewards coming out of her ears, every time, in monthly commissions and things. But the thing that she really remembers, the thing that stands out for her, was that she got invited on a Palmer Sport Day, Bedford Autodrome. And it probably was a fraction of the commissions that she'd earned, but she really remembers that recognition, that experiential thing, and she linked it back to the behaviour. So that's something that we really heavily preach on in the business.
And so client-wise, and this is all promoted on the website, Coca-Cola, Honeywell, Subway, Volkswagen Commercial Vehicles, Amiga, Vodafone, to name just 6.
Yeah.
Boom. So Coca-Cola. So let's talk about Coca-Cola if you can. So what are you doing with Coca-Cola?
I mean, some of the clients on the website, in honesty, are a little bit old, but we've done something that we did for Coca-Cola. It was a leadership program we did for them years ago. This is going right back to probably the start of the business. So we did a leadership program for them where and that led to team building events and things that led off the back of that. And we used our points platform, Incentive Bank, to drive certain behaviours in their leadership team. It was essentially to try and drive more recognition in the business, more than reward. There was some big team building activity at the end, but it's to drive recognition, because if people feel, there's only a few things people really want to be happy in their workplace, and one of them is a great relationship with their boss and their leader, or their direct lead. People don't leave businesses; they leave bad leaders, effectively. I think something like 75% of people who leave a job will leave because of their manager, not because they wanted to go for an extra grand or two somewhere else. So it was all about sort of driving great leadership in that business and helping them to recognise when people were catching people doing stuff right, and people and definitely catching people doing something above and beyond. So
presumably Growth plans. So next 5-10 years, keep pushing, keep growing, keep acquiring new customers, fantastic brands, grow the team.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that we had a few years, because of the past, we had a few years where we tootled along a little bit. We had some great sort of pillar customers that helped me keep a nice lifestyle and so on. But in the last couple of years, there's been a real change in the business. We take on the business development team. We've really invested heavily in the software team, in the customer success team. And that has helped us straight away bring in new clients like Michelin and Karsha and Chevron.
Nice.
So some really big brands that we're working with now.
You need to stick those on the website.
On top of those, yeah, absolutely, yeah. And there's huge growth plans. I think going on that Goldman Sachs course early this year, which I would recommend to any listeners out there who fit the criteria, it helped us devise a growth plan that focused in mind. As an entrepreneur, you've got a million ideas. They're all firing off everywhere. And sometimes as a result, you get nothing done because there's too many things going on. So what it helped me do was focus on some really key areas of the business. And one of those is to improve the software to make it sort of more self-service. So rather than all just these big enterprise customers that make up our core business, we also want to attract a range of other businesses, you know. We're a relatively small business. We use it in our own business. Why can't other businesses do that?
So you're trying to develop the software and the team here and the proposition so that an SME can engage and subscribe and incentivize their own staff and customers with this as well.
So you effectively get an enterprise level solution in a smaller business. And I don't think anyone out there is really doing that successfully at the moment. So it's a really exciting time for us. That's the real growth opportunity that we're looking at. Yeah.
And so we're recording this podcast in your office, so next to Cranfield, and so Cranfield's now known for being a very good sort of business community and a growing one, and even Barclays themselves have set up an Eagle Lab there, which focuses on tech businesses, and certainly in this region, those involved in automotive and aeroplanes and transport, etc. And my business Longhurst is based on Silverstone Park, which is part of the sort of Silverstone technology cluster environment. So to those businesses that aren't part of that type of business region, how important do you think, not only for potentially the growth of your business but also the local economy, are sort of business clusters and technology clusters like these?
I think it's incredible because I think it just opens up a huge range of networking opportunities. You speak to people that you probably wouldn't have otherwise spoken to. You mentioned Barclays with the Eagle Lab up at Cranfield here. Well, we started looking into that, and Sonia, who runs the Eagle Lab, used to be our bank manager at Barclays. Okay. She'd moved on to run the Eagle Lab, and we got sort of moved up to a new type of account, a new segment of Barclays account called High Growth and Entrepreneurial, and that's run by Matt Lawley, who's been on your podcast previously. Yeah. And I think that's opened up a whole new network to us, and it's been really interesting to see. We've been introduced and Matt introduced me to you, Chris.
Sure.
Lots of opportunities have come from that, and I would encourage businesses to, even if you can't get involved in Eagle Lab or the Silverstone Technology Group, that you look to these places, open your mind up a little bit, and I think there's incredible growth that can come from it.
Yeah, here. And obviously, talking about Barclays and Matt Lawley, so Matt will be listening to this because obviously he's a mutual professional advisor to, as am I in Longhurst. How important is it to businesses out there, and including those that are considering sort of starting up, to ensure that you've got the right professional advisors around you? So, I know that you deal with Barclays, so that's actually a banking partner. You deal with the team at EMW, who are sort of local specialist law firm, and we also work with them also. And your sort of tax team, as it were, accountancy team at McIntyre Hudson, who we know and work alongside also. So, to me, that sounds like you've got a really good trusted team around you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
How does that make you feel, and how important is it to have such a team, certainly with some of the previous business lessons that you've experienced?
Yeah, it's the most important thing, to be honest. I think as again, as an entrepreneur, it can be a really lonely place, and you're just banging ideas off the wall all the time. So having a really trusted group of people around you who you can go and bounce ideas off, and they don't necessarily, they're not in your business all the time, they're not in your industry, so they're really interesting perspectives you'll get back from them. And going to work with people like EMW and McIntyre Hudson, we made a conscious effort that we started working with both of those companies way before maybe we were big enough to as a business. But we made a conscious effort to think like a big business. And, both of those businesses have opened up a lot of opportunities for us. And it also makes us look a lot, well, I was going to say a lot more professional. We are professional, so it gives us that kudos.
It shows that you're taking it seriously. I mean,
Exactly.
we have an analogy on our website that says good advice has a price, and the reality is even if you're a small firm, I think the lesson from this, and the bit I'm picking up from it positively, is that even though you would have perceived yourself to potentially not be big enough to need to pay potentially the fees of a slightly larger accountancy practice and potentially one of the largest law firms in the region. But by actually doing that and paying for the advice, it not only provided you comfort and reassurance that you're dealing with the right people, but actually then helped elevate you, not just from a knowledge perspective and a confidence perspective, but also within your network, to say, actually, this is the team that we've got working beside us. We're taking this shit very seriously. Yeah, we've got a growth plan. And these guys are going to be part of that.
Exactly, and I think it's one of the big lessons that I've taken from everything that's happened over my career is be a sponge, take in everybody else's advice. If you think you're the best person in the room, you're in the wrong room. Is the famous saying, So absolutely, I'm always looking to other people. I suffer from what a lot of business people probably suffer from, this imposter syndrome.
Yep.
Sometimes where, but that's good in a way, because it makes you look outwards. It stops you being arrogant, it stops you sort of being insular. So getting advice from all these people is absolutely critical,
We're 40 minutes in, Richard. 40 minutes.
I do chat.
There we are. Right. I think we should start sort of closing this interview down. So first of all, thank you so much for coming on. We've been very much looking forward to this. And it was a lot less painful than you thought it was going to be, hopefully. So that's good. Two normal sort of end questions, but before I ask them, is there anything that I haven't asked you, or anything that you want to sort of cover off that sort of sprung to mind as we've been talking?
I think you've done a pretty good job, Chris.
Okay.
I mean, you haven't asked me about my amazing cycling career or anything like that. I haven't had an amazing cycling.
I was going to say,
I'm a weekend warrior, middle-aged man in lycra.
So I can see what colour lycra?
All sorts.
All sorts.
Yes.
So, there's a bike upstairs in your office, and there's also a bike in your home.
Yeah, there's one in every room.
Which your good lady Jen is very unhappy about. Let's not talk about you in lycra. I think let's not do that. Right. Embarrassing mistake. So I love to ask our guests about an embarrassing mistake, and the reason for that is, first of all, I like to see them squirm because it's good fun, but also occasionally there'll be some good lessons to sort of learn from it. Sometimes not. Sometimes it's just a stupid mistake. So what's in your locker? What can we share to our wonderful listeners?
I think I need more than a locker. I've had a few. And looking back to the Dragon's Den experience is probably a good one. So the moment that I got called up the stairs to go and present with Julie, I got to the top stair and I tripped over, absolutely face planted right at Peter Jones's feet. The stairs come up next to him, and it went down hard, and I was like, oh no, this is so embarrassing. I think the pain of the embarrassment was way more than the pain of going down. And I just heard, cut, and I had to go back up the stairs again. So the absolutely terrifying second walk up the stairs.
So they didn't show that?
Luckily, they didn't show that.
Oh, man.
The only thing they did show of me was my first sentence, when I was asked a question, and it sort of came out very high-pitched, like I said. So, pretty embarrassing.
What a great embarrassing mistake. Fantastic, fantastic. That may lead on or may not lead on to sort of life lessons. And so we know that we've got students and also young professionals listening to the pod, which is fantastic. And hopefully in time we'll get more and more. if we were to take you back to when you were a little bit younger, so not too long ago, so, you know, whatever, 16, 18, trying to be complimentary here, what bit of sort of experience or life lesson could you give yourself? There's one bit of knowledge, one pearl of wisdom. What would you say to yourself?
I think don't get disheartened when things don't go your way, because they inevitably don't. You know, you have to work really hard. Nothing, unless you're very, very lucky, things don't just work and happen for you. So it's all about sort of, you know, there's the old Chinese proverb, I think, of get knocked down or fall over 7 times, get up 8, and that's really true. You have to just keep battling forward and don't let things discourage you. Take them as lessons and take them as a positive lesson forward in life. Learn from them. Don't make the same mistake twice. So yeah, I would probably say that to myself, because I think maybe when I was 16, 17, 18, I probably got easily discouraged, and you'd move on to the next thing. And yeah, you have to keep going, pushing forward.
Don't make the same mistake twice.
Unfortunately, like the South African scrum.
Oh man, they absolutely mullered us, didn't they? Absolutely mullered us. Richard, founder and CEO of Incentivesmart, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Absolute pleasure.
All of our wonderful listeners, just to say that, first of all, if you really like this show, please make sure you leave a 5-star review on iTunes, which you can either do directly on iTunes online or do through your mobile phone. The reason that we ask for that is that the more 5-star reviews we get, the higher up the sort of iTunes category rankings that we go, meaning that the more these podcast interviews are going to be listened and shared, not just in the UK, but globally. Also, by the time this is aired, we'll be closing off sort of season 3 with a view of recording season 4 probably by springtime next year. If you're listening to this and you think, actually, I'd love to come on the show and sort of gas bag about my business and share your career and also some of the embarrassing mistakes that maybe you've experienced, please give us an email. All of the details are on the show notes, where you can contact me directly, and then we can have a quick talk about bringing you on the show. Richard, thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you.
The Inside Silverstone podcast is produced by the team at Longhurst for the benefit of those with a passion for all things tech, engineering and innovation. For more information, please visit longhurst.co.uk/Inside Silverstone, whilst also remembering to give us a 5 out of 5 star rating on iTunes. Please note that neither Chris Broome or Longhurst work for Silverstone Park, Silverstone Circuit or Silverstone Technology Cluster.